Hi everybody, I am Adriana. Today we're going to talk about great migration and the relocation of the more than 6 million African Americans that moved to rural south to the urban north. That happened in between 1914 to 1945, and that had a huge impact in the urban life in the cities. For representation, we select an important painter from African American, and his name was Jacob Lawrence. And we divide our project in 4 parts. The first part, Mercedes, we're going to talk why the African American moved to the north. Then Ala will talk. We're going to talk about how was the condition, how they live in the north, and then Joanna, we're going to talk about Red Summer, the rises, was part of daily life. And to finish, Hernan, we're going to talk about how the African American moved to the own neighborhood and rise the ghettos. Now we're going to listen the audio from Mercedes, and where she's going to talk about why the African American moved to the north.
Hello everybody, I want to explain more about the reasons for migration of the African American from the rural south to the urban industrial north. We can divide the reasons to 2 big categories. First was the segregation. It means that the separation of African Americans from the society. Between 1882 to 1968, 3,500 African Americans were lynched. Shopkeepers or restaurant owners or hotel owners treated African Americans very bad to get away from them and give them very expensive prices. Despite the civil rights law in 1885 that says that no matter of the race or the color of the people should be treated the same way, African American were not treated the same way of the same as other people in the society. For example, in 1900, a black lady sued an Indianapolis hotel because they didn't allow her to use the elevator to go to her customer. So she sued the hotel for the not allowing her to use the elevator, and then the court said that because this black lady is not a customer of the hotel, the hotel can not allow her to use the elevator. So the African American, despite the law, they didn't have even money or time to fight back with these segregations. Another reason that we can consider for the migration is the lack of labor in the north. After we talk about that, and the north was industrial, and there were a lot of factory over there. But after World War II, World War One, World War One, there were a lot of lack of laborers. So factory owners send labor agent to the south, and so they can encourage African Americans to come to the north with some opportunities, like give them free transportation or very low and very cheap housing. So African American heard about this promised land with by their relatives or the newspapers who run by black or by these labor agents. And now Allah will explain to us part 2. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Allah. I'll continue with my part. So the migrants from 14 southern states headed, especially Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana and Texas, headed to the large industrial centers: Detroit, Pittsburgh, New York, Chicago and Boston. This journey to the north was made by train, boat, bus, sometimes car and even horse-drawn carriages. In the decade between 1910 and 1920, the New York African American population rose by 60%, Chicago's by 150%. Detroit experienced an amazing growth of 600%. Detroit, with its automotive and war industries, was one of the main destinations for African American migrants. The well-known Ford plant was the key reason for this. Ford was the first auto manufacturing company which hired African Americans, and it offered jobs for African Americans at $5 a day, which was the same as for white workers. This amount of money was really huge, and it was almost as twice as large the average wage in the country. Moreover, Ford and other companies sent their agents to the south to promote the jobs and hire African Americans. But despite high wages, African Americans were segregated at the plant and in life outside it. There was competition for living space in the cities. Whites refused to rent out or sell their houses to newcomers, and it was a huge problem for them. Unofficial segregation of blacks was everywhere, even on the beaches of Lake Michigan. And now Joanna will tell us what happened on the beaches of Lake Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. Hello, good morning. I'm Joanna, and I will talk about the Red Summer. As Ella said, there was no official segregation, but the discrimination against African Americans was everywhere. Those white people didn't want to live in the same neighborhood with African Americans, and they also didn't want there to be where they hang out and relaxed, like parks or beaches. What happened on the Chicago beaches was Oh. What happened on the Chicago beaches was the fuse that lit the well-known Red Summer. The city's beaches in Chicago along the Lake Michigan was segregated by custom rather than by law. On July 27, 1919, a young African-American guy named Eugene Williams went there to swim and play with his friends. A white guy was throwing stones into the water, and they thought he was just playing, but later they found it wasn't a joke. Williams was hit on the head and drowned. Instead of arresting the white guy who was throwing stones, the police on duty arrested an African American, which enraged the African Americans on the beaches, and they began to fight against the white people. These kind of riots lasted 8 days, and more than 500 people were injured. 38 died, and 23 of whom were African Americans. Other accounts reported 50 people were killed, with unofficial numbers and the rumors reporting more. It was reported most of the white riots were led by the well-established ethnic Irish, whose territory bordered the African American neighborhood. Those white mobs destroyed hundreds of African American homes and businesses on the south side of Chicago, and 1,000 African American families were left homeless. It was only the beginning of the riots, which later spread to the more than 24 other cities across America. In response to the Red Summer, the African Brotherhood formed in the northern cities to serve the armed resistance movement, and protests and appeals to the federal government continued for weeks. But whatever the result was, we know, unfortunately, even now, the discrimination against African Americans is still there. Now welcome Anand to draw the conclusion for our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. But the promised land was not the land of milk and honey. While it was true that was better than the South, they still had to live separately. So they live African American on one side and white on the other side. As a result, the growth of ghettos. Harlem, New York, Paradise Valley in Detroit, the Hills district in Pittsburgh, etc. But African American meant majority, and majority means power. Nowadays, they are leaders in everywhere, even in our Congress. And as our first African American president, a former senator from Illinois. So guys, I hope you have learned a little bit about the Great Migration and also enjoyed our presentation. Thank you.